What would you do if you were the only person to remember the Beatles? Hey, I'm Amy and welcome back, and today I will be talking about Yesterday, the new Danny Boyle movie. It is about Jack Malek, who in this sudden entire blackout of the world gets hit by a bus and wakes up to be the only person to remember the Beatles. I'm going to try to go through this as spoiler-free as possible because there were some twists in there that I didn't know about that I was just like, I really enjoyed that. I may have some spoilers in my notes on my Patreon if you want to read those, and maybe towards the end of this I'll throw in a couple spoilers. Try to go spoiler free. This movie I was very, very excited for because I had a friend that went to see it a couple weeks back and he told me it was amazing. I'm not like the biggest fan of the Beatles, but I love their music. I enjoy their music a lot because honestly, who doesn't enjoy the Beatles music? I don't know anybody who really hates the Beatles. They like their music when they listen to it. I feel like the Beatles are just one of those bands that just traverses all genres because basically every band and every musician in the world living today has been influenced by the Beatles or Paul McCartney or John Lennon or somebody that was associated with the Beatles at one point in time. This movie was just a no-brainer for me to go and see, and I knew within the first 5 minutes that I already loved this movie. It was going to be in probably my top 5 of the entire year. It's so beautiful and heartfelt and just happy. I wouldn't say it's a surprisingly happy movie. From the trailers, it does, like, you do get the vibe that it is going to be a happy movie. All the reviews are like, it's the feel-good movie of the summer, and honestly, those are all completely true. I walked away from this movie with the thought, this is a movie to put on my just feel-good, happy time, happy place movie list. I have a list of like maybe 5 movies plus like the Harry Potter and Lord of the Rings series that no matter what mood I'm in, especially if I'm like feeling down or I'm just like, I want to feel super cozy even if I'm like in a great mood, I just put some of these movies on to just watch and just feel just the warmth from the movie, and this is definitely one of them. So you probably already guessed what my rewatch score is going to be on this. Before I get to that, I do want to talk a little bit about the movie, really, my thoughts on it. There are some interesting camera like angles, there's some interesting transitions. I really enjoyed the overall aesthetic of this film. It's very bright, it's very colorful, which adds to the happy tone of the film. Even in some of its darker moments, it still has this very bright aesthetic. It doesn't get super dark like you would expect from a film like this. You would expect some very climactic scene where it all goes downhill and there's a lot of drama. It really is not that. It is not meant for that. It is to make you feel good and to be just to enjoy the Beatles music told through a different person than the Beatles, I guess. It's kind of like the way I felt when I watched Across the Universe, at least like Beatles music wise. It was just like what am I trying to say? It gave me goosebumps just hearing their lyrics. I mean, Himesh Patel, who plays Jack Malek, has a great singing voice. If it really is him singing those songs, which I believe it is, he did such an amazing job with his performance singing, but I still probably would have gotten goosebumps just listening to the Beatles music because no matter what, like when I was watching Across the Universe for the first time years and years ago, I got goosebumps listening to their music. It's just the lyrics that they wrote are so beautiful. It's just breathtaking. Lily James is so wonderful as Jack's friend Ellie. Kate McKinnon just steals every scene she's in because, you know, that's what Kate McKinnon does. She is a goddess of comedy, and I want to see her in so many more things. So now that I kind of have a general thoughts on this movie out of the way, I'm going to talk a little bit about a couple spoilery things within this movie. The first thing that's not super spoilery is the fact that there are other things besides the Beatles that people forgot about, and I really loved how they brought that in to the film in different ways. Every time that Jack finds out that somebody doesn't remember something. They do this funny little cutaway of him searching it and not finding any results. It's hilarious. They use Google in a very great way in this. And now I'm getting into some very serious spoilery type things. There are two other people in the world who remember the Beatles, and you get this ominous feeling when you see them. There's this one guy and this one lady, and every time you see them, you get an ominous feeling like something bad is going to happen. And then when you see them at a press conference, you get a really big sense of like claustrophobia and nervousness from Jack because he realizes they remember too and he thinks something bad's gonna happen. And then when they're brought up to his dressing room after his performance, he gets even more nervous until they're like, thank you for doing what you're doing, even though what you're doing is a lie. Thank you for bringing the Beatles back into the world and bringing the music to everybody. And I wrote down a quote from the lady who says, a world without the Beatles is infinitely worse. And I totally agree with her, because without the Beatles, we would not have some of the musicians that we have today. We wouldn't have Ed Sheeran, who, by the way, is a really big role in this. I knew he was part of the movie, but he plays a much bigger role than I thought he would. Even though you kind of get that from the trailers, I just didn't really think about it. And yes, I know saying that if we didn't have the Beatles, we wouldn't have Ed Sheeran kind of negates the entire purpose of this movie, but I think that's what makes this movie so funny and so great, is the absurdity of having all of these amazing artists still being out there without having the Beatles. And then finally, the biggest spoiler, which you probably could see coming from the start of this, we get an appearance of I think he said he was like 78-year-old John Lennon, and he is everything that you would expect a 78-year-old John Lennon to be. And it made me so happy, and I kind of teared up a little bit, and I was just like, oh my God, the world lost you too soon, you beautiful man. It was very beautiful. I definitely recommend going to see this movie if possible. So beautiful, so good, especially if you are a fan of the Beatles, which I feel like most people are fans of the Beatles and would probably go and see this anyways. I think that's a little bit of everything. My rewatch score for this obviously is collection. I need to watch this movie all the time. Let me know your thoughts on yesterday in the comments down below. What did you think of it? Did you see it? Also, let me know the question I asked at the top of the video. What would you do if you're the only person who remembered the Beatles? I honestly don't think I could do what Jack did, because I don't remember the lyrics to every single Beatles song. I have to kind of be listening to it and singing along with it to remember, and I'm a terrible singer, just like the other two people in this movie that remembered the Beatles, and that's why they thank Jack for bringing the Beatles back into the world. So thank you guys so much for watching. I really truly do appreciate you, whoever you are. Let me know who you are in the comments down below, and let's be friends. If you enjoyed this, leave a like and subscribe if you're new, because I'll talk about these movies, TV shows, filmmaking, mystery, all that fun stuff, and I'll see you next time. Bye!